Who came up with the idea? Let's add a celebrity element to it. Let's put you out in the wild. Let's do Running Wild, where you're going to start having a whole host of people from across the sports or pop culture or political landscape. How did you come across that one, Bear Grylls? I love the idea.
Well,
Obviously, it's successful.
we did 7 seasons of Man versus Wild, which is kind of one lone man against the elements, doing,
Right.
with our great crew, and I think one of the things I'm most proud of on our TV kind of arsenal of shows is that we have that same crew from the beginning, still best friends to this day. I love that, very proud of that. But after 7 seasons, we got approached by our first ever Running Wild guest, which was Will Ferrell, and he said, "I'd love you just to take me on an adventure." And we ended up filming it, but it was part of Man versus Wild. It was kind of Men versus Wild, I think they called it. And again, that kind of flew, and it was just at a time where I was finishing with Discovery Channel, taking a kind of step to NBC, which was my first on network show, and we said, why don't we just make a whole series of this? We call it Running Wild. I'll take along some other people. We got great guests, quickly. We in the next one was Jake Gyllenhaal, I think, and I think because we started really at the top, we've just always been really lucky and just had amazing people. And I always think the Wild is a real star of the show. It allows people to be honest and to open up. My job is to keep them alive, keep it fun, not kind of break people too much, and give them a great experience. And the magic of Running Wild really is we bring new audiences every time, new fans, new guests, new stars, and we're just kicking off season 8 now of Running Wild. And like I said, it's been a true privilege in my life, something I never take for granted. It's a position of real trust with these stars.
Now,
But I truly love it.
Usually here in Los Angeles, folks like your guests, the most they do is something called glamping. But that's pretty much their version of wild, is going glamorous camping, called glamping. I'm sure you might have heard of that. But what was Will Ferrell like in the wild for your first Men versus Wild? What was that like?
I think he would have been dreaming of some glamping.
Yes, I bet.
I didn't know about that. It's a genius, great way of doing it. But Will Ferrell definitely didn't get that version. And actually, I think one of the errors we made in the early days of Running Wild is we filmed for way too long. We got for days and days, and we were in the Arctic in the wintertime, crazy low temperatures, and poor guy was almost broken by it. And still to this day, if I see him, he would go, "Oh my God, Bear, what? That was the hardest thing." And we've kind of learned you don't need to go to such crazy extremes of temperatures anymore. Make it simple, make it shorter, make it empowering and fun. But I think Will had one of the hardest ones we've ever done.
Oh, wow.
And it's a miracle anyone ever signed up after it. And it's why I'm so grateful to those early shows and the faith that those early stars put in me before the show was established, really.
Well, for a colleague of mine, Bear Grylls, for quite a while at NFL Network was Deion Sanders. And I know he went into the wild with you. What was Prime like there? Was he well suited for the wild in any way, shape, or form, Bear?
Prime time was truly unsuited to the wild. And I think he would say that by his own admission.
Yes,
I love that man, and we had so much fun, and still to this day, I mean, somebody sent me an interview he did recently where some people were kind of ribbing him about that trip, and going Prime, you were amazing, you were brilliant, but you were crazy. And he suddenly gets very serious. He goes, "That was the worst thing I've ever done in my life." And again, I think we pushed him pretty hard, maybe a little too hard in retrospect. But the problem with the primetime one is that I took him up this kind of mesa in Utah, and blank wall, 1,000-foot climb. Poor guy. He gets pretty bad vertigo as well. But the problem is once you get onto these wall climbs, there's no out. And I think what I've learned over many seasons of Running Wild is you always got to have an exit. You've always got to be able to adjust the journey if people are really struggling with something. There was no adjusting or getting out of that one. So we were on this thing for hours and hours and hours. But do you know what? He never gave up. He has such a fun kind of adventure spirit. Even though he has none of those adventure skills or experience, he's got an adventure spirit. He laughed at himself. He cried with himself. he was just brilliant, and I love him and admire him so much for it. So
Me too. Me
true
too.
hero.
He's one of my favorite people. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.